Hello everyone, we're working on our photograph that was a black and white and we added a blue door. We did a kind of quick job there by painting it in, using a hue and saturation layer, using the blend mode of overlay and the opacity of that at 80%. So if you're just joining here, what I'd like to do is merge these layers up to a brand new layer where we're going to add a Gaussian blur to blur some of the edges, and we're also going to add a vignette around this photograph. What I'd like to do is, if you're on a PC, let you know what the command would be to merge these layers. Get in your topmost layer, highlight it blue like mine is, and hit Control, Shift, Alt, and the letter E at the same time. Quickly again, that is Control, Shift, Alt, and E. That's 4 keys. Hold them at the same time. And on a Mac, that would be Shift, Option, Command, and E together. And what you can see is you have a merged layer here. What essentially this means that we've merged this adjustment to live here, so we don't even need these on anymore. For our purposes, you can leave them on if you'd like to, and probably best to leave on this background layer for now. But when you merge a layer upwards, it absorbs all of the adjustments that are previously there to the topmost target layer. Now that we're in this target layer here, what I'd like to do is begin to blur this photograph. And we do that by coming up to the filter menu and dropping down to blur and Gaussian blur. Click once there, it'll launch a slider which tells you about the radius of the pixels that you are grabbing to blur. In this case I have about 5.1 selected. You can say OK to that. And what you'll see happen here is that we have the entire layer is now a blurred image, which is only partly what we wanted to do. We want to begin to reveal some clarity of where our 3 subjects are sitting and some of the detail on the door. The way you can do this is by painting in a mask. So let's launch a mask by going down to the bottom of your layers palette, and let's click Add Layer Mask. It launches a revealed mask, which is to say white, because we do know that when you see a mask that's white, those areas are showing the adjustment. And when you see black, you know it's hiding the adjustment. So in this case, the white reveal is revealing an entirety of the blur that we just put on this photograph. So the way to reveal the clear portion of the photograph that was underneath, which is down here, is to paint away some of this blur by masking it out. So make sure you have black selected as your foreground color here, and grab your brush tool. If you don't already have it set, let's go to your brush slider and move that hardness slider all the way to the left so you have a nice soft brush up, and then click once outside there. I have a very big brush up right here, and what I'd like to do is use my bracket key to drop it down nice and small, or use the right bracket key to make it very large. You can practice making your brush large and small like I'm doing here. What I'd like to do is start with a fairly small brush, approximately the size of each of these individuals' faces, and take my opacity of what I'm about to paint with and bring that up to 100%. And what you can do is click around, sorry about that, what you can do is get into the mask, make sure, very important, to be painting in the mask using the indication that you have a bracket around this layer and you're painting with black. So click once and you can see immediately that our center subject comes into focus because we're hiding the blur by painting with black. And I'm going to move over to the gentleman over here and a little bit on his coat while I'm clicking around, and this other gentleman here. Now that might be all I want really in focus, but what I can do is expand this brush by hitting the right bracket key and taking the opacity that I'm using to paint with and drop that down to about, let's say, 60%. Or 50% even, and click around further on the periphery of their faces and jackets and shoulders, and you end up having a softer reveal, essentially leaving more of that blur. And you can take some broad strokes around here, and there it is in the mask. You can kind of see that we have a nice reveal of the background, which is all blurred, indicated by the white, and their faces are hidden from the blur by the fact that we've painted with black. So if you're happy with that, if you're not happy with that, we can reset that mask by clicking in the mask and hitting Command Delete. That puts us back to our default. And let's quickly run through that again. Again, I'm painting with black. I'm going to get my opacity up to 100%, and I'm going to hide that blur by painting in with black around their faces in the mask. Then you can drop the slider down, opacity down to 40 or 50%. Let's try 44%. Make a nice big brush and sweep it on the outside, and you will see that you are still keeping a lot of that blur, but you're getting a little bit of clarity too, and parts of the door remain in blur as well as the steps and the railing here. So what I'd like to do is, once you're in this top layer and you're satisfied with your blur, is merge this layer up by hitting Shift, Command, Option E on a Mac. If you're on a PC, that command is Control, Shift, Alt, and E at the same time. We merge our layers up here, and this is where we're going to put our vignette or our darkened border. And if you've seen another video, there's a quick way to do this by using your selection marquee tool. Come over to the side palette here. I have the elliptical marquee tool I'm going to use. I set the feathering up here at the top to 185 pixels, which is going to create a nice soft edge. So you can set your brush and drag out this elliptical marquee in somewhat of an oval shape, like I've done here, and let go. It immediately makes a selection waiting for your command of what to do next. I'm moving it by holding down my mouse and moving that marquee to the center of the photograph. And what I can do at this point is launch a mask right now while I have my selection waiting, and just hit the Add Layer Mask, and it put a layer mask here which is open in the center and blocked out on the outside because it is black. What I'd like you to do is just invert that by clicking and hitting Command I. We'll invert that mask. Well, we haven't seen anything happen yet, and the way that we can make this happen is by multiplying this layer on top of it, the one that is beneath it, and that will give us our vignette. So let's drop down to our blend layer, our blend palette here, and pick the blend mode of multiply, and immediately you can see, because of the way we've made our mask, that it is multiplying on top of the one beneath it, and the area of the multiply that is revealed is really just the edges that are white. The area that is protected from this multiply is the black part of the mask, because remember, our rule is the black part of the mask is hiding and protecting. The white part of the mask is revealing the adjustment. If that's too heavy-handed, you can slide this down a little bit and you'll notice our vignette gets lighter and lighter. If you want to keep it up where it was, you can keep it at 100%. There's before, there's after. You have your layer here with your blur and your layer with your vignette. I hope this was helpful, and give it a watch a couple of times and see if it sinks in, and maybe you can use it on a couple photographs you're working on.